Hey folks, it's your friend Ashton, and welcome to the Rooted Rebellion podcast, the show that's reshaping the food system from the ground up. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Rooted Rebellion podcast. Wherever you are in the world, thank you so much for listening in and joining the conversation. I know you're here because you care deeply about our nation's food system, and I bet you know others that feel the same way. So please subscribe and share this message with anyone that you think needs to hear it. It really does help us to further our mission. Today, we're going to be talking trash. And I don't mean roasting any politicians, but if you want to catch me after the show, I might have a word or two to say about that. Now, I can sense that if you tuned in to hear about the food system, you might be feeling a little crestfallen because today we are not discussing award-winning organic produce, and we are not chatting about how good it feels to wear your overalls and get dirt beneath your nails. No, folks, we are not talking about refuse. Cast-offs and unwanted whatnots, put it plain and simple, we're talking about what most of us call garbage and what to do with it. Because I hate to tell you, but when we throw away our trash, there is no such thing as a way. There is no magical place known as a way where our waste just vanishes. We have got a trash problem of epic proportions that we owe to our overconsumption, and we're all suffering for it. But while I am all for accountability, we are not here to play the shame or the blame game. We are here to provide practical solutions. And you can thank today's guest for the solutions you're about to hear. Keilin Huang is the Development and Outreach Assistant Manager at Home Resource, a nonprofit community sustainability center based in Missoula, Montana. She is an escapee of the publishing industry, an independent author, and an all-around joy. She's here today to share about her work in waste management and to break some myths about the zero-waste lifestyle, offering creative and fun solutions to a global dilemma. But on that subject, I'll let her speak for herself. Here is Keilin Huang.
Hi, Ashton. Thanks so much for having me.
It is so great to hear from you again. I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule because I know that you have got a lot going on. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to kick us off, would you want to give just a brief professional summary? You've done some changing in your industries and you've wore quite a few hats, which I admire. So if you just want to tell us a little bit about your work experience and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, totally. I'm based in Missoula, Montana, and I work for a nonprofit called Home Resource. I am the Zero Waste and Outreach Assistant Manager, and I do a lot of working with the community, especially for big events in Missoula. So that includes the Missoula Marathon. We have a music festival called Zoo Fest. We just recently had the Western Montana State Fair. I'm part of the green team, and we lead volunteers and show them how to sort waste into 3 different bins, like compost, recycling, and trash. In addition to that, I do a lot of outreach to different organizations to ask for donations and grants to help with different events that Home Resource puts on. My job is really nice because I get to work a lot with community members and interacting with the general public just to talk to them about what Home Resource as a nonprofit does, because the nonprofit was originally founded as a place to save old construction material from the landfill. So, it's pretty cool to walk around. There'll just be like random doors and windows, and you'll see like giant panels of wood, and we have a bunch of tools. So
That's
it's a
really
fun
neat.
place to be.
Yeah, that is really neat. So where do you source those materials? Who would be receiving those materials? Is that something that goes to the community or fellow nonprofits?
So people will donate it, and it goes to the retail store part of Home Resource. So then people can purchase it if they want. So it's basically like a thrift store for construction materials.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. We need more
Mm-hmm.
creative solutions like that. I really love that.
Yeah, definitely. And this is my first job in sustainability, actually, my first full-time job. I did this 180 in my career. So I used to work in book publishing in New York City, and I did that for about 7 years. And then I decided that it was not for me. It wasn't very fulfilling. So I decided to change and kind of pivot to sustainability and waste management. And what gave me this idea was because when I was in New York, I did a lot of volunteering. So I volunteered at the farmers market. I volunteered with a compost drop off organization. They use chickens to break down their waste. And I just really enjoyed it. I loved the community garden, just kind of getting my hands dirty. And I think when I was having this kind of career crisis, I was just thinking about what I really enjoyed doing and what I wanted to learn more about. Sustainability just came to mind. So I actually had pretty interesting timing because I quit my job in book publishing at the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic happened. And I think it was the silver lining in it was that it gave me this opportunity to kind of sit and think about like what I wanted to do and some things that I could start working on. So during the pandemic was when I started doing a lot of freelancing. I ended up writing this how-to guide on composting.
Oh,
And
wow. We're going to have to
yeah,
hear from that.
yeah. It was a self-published thing, but I think I really loved it a lot. And just doing the research and just learning more about composting in general. And I have two really good friends from the publishing industry. Their names are Candace and Abi, and I was able to work with them to turn this how-to guide into a zine. And they were like, oh, like we would love to illustrate it and get it out into the world. So besides my how to compost book, I guess, I also have a zine about how to compost as well. And all of that to say, it was so nice to learn about composting and how I could reduce my own waste. And about a year into the pandemic, when New York was still shut down, the Department of Sanitation, they actually had a virtual class called the Trash Academy. And I decided to enroll in that because I was like, this sounds like the perfect opportunity to learn more about waste and what New York City is doing. So I enrolled in that, and it was so fascinating, Ashton. Like I don't think I've ever like just been so interested in trash before. But New York City is so big. I mean, there's over 8 million people there. And just learning about how you manage all of that waste was really fascinating. So this Trash Academy, I believe it was week long, a week long thing. And at the end of it, they give you different opportunities on how you can become involved in waste management, in sustainability within the city. So one of the opportunities was this AmeriCorps position at the Department of Sanitation, and it was with the donations department, which is underneath the like the overall zero waste work that the Department of Sanitation is doing. So I applied for that and I got in. And it was just so great to be in the Department of Sanitation and just seeing how everything worked. And donation specifically is related to zero waste because I would be the liaison between people that wanted to donate items and then people that were looking for donated items. So it was this, I guess, kind of a sanitation sustainability Craigslist almost, where people could, go back and forth. So after that, so the AmeriCorps stint was about a year. I think it was 11 months. And after that, they give you an education award that you have to use for grad school. So I thought it was the perfect opportunity to apply for like some type of environmental studies grad school program. So I did some research, and the University of Montana, they have one of the oldest environmental studies programs in the country. I decided to move to Montana from New York City.
Well, before we launch into your present role, which I'm very interested to hear about, I want to thank you for sharing and also just commend you for your passion about waste management, because I think there are so many different ways to approach sustainability and environmental advocacy. And I'm going to be honest, you have one of the less glamorous jobs, and I mean that in the sense so few people I feel like are called to that, and I really admire it, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So, what drew you to waste management specifically?
So I I think one of the biggest reasons, honestly, was just climate anxiety and just feeling like I needed to do something tangible, because I think all my life I've just heard about global warming and climate change and just the effects it's had. But there's so much that feels out of reach. And I think it's very easy to feel hopeless and that you're not doing anything. And it feels very rewarding because you're working on a micro level rather than trying to change policy or, especially with the current administration, this work feels even more important.
Absolutely. And I think something that's particularly fascinating about your journey to me, and something that I'm seeing from other interviewees as well, is this shift in career based on what you're calling a climate anxiety, this just driving need for change.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Something I recently term carbon footprint was actually created by the petroleum company BP. They worked with an advertising agency to come up with that term. It put the responsibility on the individual to try and change their actions and try and protect the planet rather than putting it on a bigger industry like petroleum or like oil. So the term carbon footprint, it's something that I've heard a lot, and now I feel very upset about it and also kind of icky, just that it was created by a big oil company and them wanting to continue to use oil and produce plastic and using like individual people as collateral.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a really powerful fact. Thank you for sharing that. I think I've heard that before, but
Mhm.
you just forget it. And it just, when you hear that, it feels like in a way we are inadvertently carrying out propaganda that was
Right.
created,
Yes.
to the benefit of
100%.
these companies and the detriment of the people and the planet. Tell me a little bit about what led you to study zero waste rather than continuing down the strictly composting route that you seem to be interested in your early career.
Yeah. I mean, so composting is a part of zero waste, but I wanted to learn more about how to better reduce waste and consumption, because composting is a major part of trying to reduce what we create, but it's not the only part. And I think I wanted to get the big picture and the overall actions that I could do and that other people could do to to reduce waste. So it was kind of a choose your own adventure. So the University of Montana they don't have a specific zero waste focus, but my advisor told me that I could focus on that and just, kind of choose what I wanted to do with it. And I think large part of zero waste besides compost is also just consumption and choosing what items we have in our daily lives. So much, I feel like even for me personally, so much of my life does revolve around buying stuff. There's just so much out there, and I think
Mm-hmm.
marketing does a really good job of making us want more. But the beauty of zero waste is that it makes you rethink all of that. So instead of constantly buying new items, it's like, how can I repair something? How can I repurpose this item? How can I like reduce the need for this certain item? It's like, do I really need 5 of this one item? It's like when I could just go with one, or I could use another item in replace of this thing that I thought that I needed to buy. And I think that's just so fascinating because it's a way to rethink how normal life is. And I think it forces me to be more creative with things. And I would argue that companies and organizations should also want that too, because without creativity and innovation, society isn't going to move forward.
That is a really good point, and I think that's one that I hadn't considered. We all benefit when our own creativity strengthens. So as the individual reaches a certain self-actualization, our communities benefit as well, and even the companies. So that is really
Yeah.
interesting. And just from our chat at Old Salt, one of the things that you brought up that really intrigued me was this notion of zero waste at a community level. Can you explain that a little bit, what that looks like?
Yeah, totally. So Missoula itself is a it's a pretty small community compared to other places that I've lived, but the city has a goal to be zero waste by the year 2050. And what
Wow.
that essentially means is that zero waste means 90% of items or stuff that would have gone into the landfill is diverted, and instead it's composted or recycled or repurposed, or it just is kept out of the landfill. So Missoula's goal is to be that 90% zero waste by the year 2050. It is a community effort because there is a lot you can do policy wise, and I think cities like San Francisco and Seattle have mandated recycling and compost programs. They also have the facilities and the resources to do that. So that does make it a lot easier. But a place like Missoula, we don't have the resources, or a lot of the resources, or the facilities. And Montana is a more rural state, so there's just less opportunity for items to be composted or to be recycled. So I think on a community level, it really comes down to education, and like places like the nonprofit where I work at Home Resource, where we are on the ground at big events, or like going into classrooms and just teaching people about what compost is, or what recycling is, and how to do it. And I think that makes a huge impact, because then you have the opportunity to talk to people one on one, rather than having this, I guess, this a larger program that could be part of the community, but maybe people don't know how to be a part of that, of like the practice of composting or recycling. So community is, I think, is so important, especially in a smaller place like Missoula, because then you have opportunity to talk to people more closely, and there there are these chances to to really get down to the nitty-gritty of just, having them ask questions and not feeling like they don't know something. And then I think that deters a lot of people because they're like, well, I don't know how to do this. So why should I try and learn if no one's going to teach me?
Yeah, it's daunting to make any of these changes. And I think that it's a really good point that you make about speaking to people on a one on one level. Something that I've realized in this line of work is that you can have people who are interested, you can have people who are resistant. It doesn't really matter where they fall. Ultimately, these are decisions and commitments that they have to make for themselves. And everyone comes to it a little differently, but it is at the end of the day a decision they have to make one on one. And it seems that the more time you can spend educating individuals and having discussions with individuals instead of just blasting them with information, that seems to be what leads to the most sustainable changes.
Yeah, definitely. And I do feel like there's there is a very close knit community in Missoula. Like it's, people know each other and like you say hi to your neighbors. And I think that's really important for a place like Missoula as opposed to maybe New York City, where it's such a large city that a lot of the individual work does have to come within the neighborhoods, like these smaller neighborhoods within this larger city.
What are some of the questions that you encounter the most? What do people want to learn the most about? What are some of the barriers that they find to practicing zero waste or composting?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the number one question is always what goes into the bins. It's like just the basics of what can be composted and what can be recycled.
Yeah. Even as someone who has practiced recycling and composting, I still have to ask that question almost every day when I go to
Yeah.
put something in.
Yeah, no, totally. And I feel like it's not even it's not even easy to do. Like even for me, I still have so many questions all the time because the plastics industry purpose purposefully does not make it easy. Like they want you to be confused because then they can continue to make these plastic products and push their own agenda like, oh yeah, it's still recyclable, even though it might not be. So for Missoula specifically, plastics 1 and 2 can be recycled here in town, but then plastics 3 through 7, you have to pay extra for that service, for it to be recycled. And then they will ship it out to, I believe it's either Seattle or Salt Lake City to be recycled. And at that point, it's like, who knows what happens to it? Who knows if it actually gets recycled or not? Um, and I think just having all of these numbers, plastics 1 through 7, like it really depends on so many different factors. Like if your city can even recycle these different plastics, because I know in San Francisco, where my family is from, they facility can handle all of those plastics, but a place like Missoula, we can only take 1 and 2, and then any other plastics, they say that it's recycled, but who actually knows? And then I think a lot of people too will even see like a plastic container and just assume that it's recyclable. So like a bucket or something that might not even have a number on it, they'll just say, "Oh, it's plastic. It can just go in the recycling," when in actuality it can't even be recycled at all and it should just be thrown in the trash. And then composting, I think that's I'm trying to make it easier, or at least home resource and the rest of my team is trying to make it easier for people to compost. But I think that in itself is a whole other system to learn, because I feel like people have been taught a lot about recycling and it's like, oh yeah, it's like aluminum cans or glass bottles or plastic, like it can all be recycled. And I feel like even when I was younger, I remember seeing videos about like reduce, reuse, recycle, and recycling was was supposedly the way to save the planet. So composting, I feel like has has become more commonplace more recently. So there's still a larger learning curve for compost. And it's possible because people learned about recycling, but I think there there is maybe a sense of exhaustion from trying to learn a new way of dealing with waste, because there are people will think, oh well, I already recycle. It's like, why do I need to learn this other system of composting, which is unfortunate, because I think composting is one of the easiest ways to start your sustainability journey and to try and better about practicing zero waste in your everyday life.
And it's so powerful to me. Like, how epic is it that you literally get to build soil? Like, for people who haven't farmed or grown their own food, like, they don't realize just how powerful good soil is. So
Yeah,
it's not just that you
definitely.
are managing your waste, you're literally building earth. That's crazy. Like,
Yeah,
when you just
yeah,
think
I
about that at the
know.
simplest level, that is so exciting to
I
me.
know. Yeah, that is such a beautiful way to put it, that you're
Yeah,
building
you're
earth.
making dirt, folks. That's
Yeah,
epic.
yeah. I
That's great.
know, I know. Yeah, well, because like literally it's like you put food scraps in and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah, it's like the
And it's like
coolest
a good
magic trick that
place.
we can all practice, but
Yeah,
it
a hundred
definitely
percent.
does come with some learning curves, and I appreciate you mentioning that, as well as the term exhaustion. I
Mm-hmm.
think recycling, the reason that we still preach it as hard as we do is that it's something that seems to take the guilt off, and it's easier to just throw random plastic into the recycling bin than it is to actually research and know. The burden then becomes on the recycling facilities
Mm-hmm.
to deal with it. Whereas, like, as a consumer, and I've been guilty of this, I probably did this just today. You can toss whatever in the bin and you're like, pat on the back, I've done my job saving the planet today. But it is more complicated than that. And it's unfortunate that a practice that has been touted as this heroic practice to save the planet is really just a curtain and we don't even know what's behind it. It's a great point that, you're working in this industry and you don't even know how effective recycling is. I think that speaks volumes. So I appreciate you speaking to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it so succinctly, Ashton, that it's like all of this is out of sight, out of mind. And I think there's a reason why big oil wants it like that way, because they don't want people to know what actually happens to the plastic or the garbage. So this past week, actually, it was the Western Montana State Fair in Missoula, and I was working as part of the green team, and we, as the green team, are literally out there sorting this 3 bin system. So there's composting, there's recycling, and there's trash. And we are out there with our trash pickers and sorting through the trash. So sorting out the composting, sorting out the recycling. And I think it's sad to say, but that is the only way to get the most accurate sorted bins, because otherwise, like you said, people just don't care sometimes. Like they'll just see a bin and then they'll dump whatever in the bin. And of course there are always individual people that are very conscientious, and they'll come up to the bin, they'll try and read the signs that are on the bin that say food waste and compost and then like recycling. But I would say the majority of people don't put in that effort and just throw it wherever. And I think that's how most of society functions, that they don't think about it, and they think, oh, it's like it's fine if I just dump it in this bin because it's just like one item, and it's like, how is that going to make a difference? But when you have hundreds of thousands of people walking through an area, like that one item can turn into, I don't know, five bins of trash, where half of those bins could have been thrown into compost or thrown into recycling.
Yeah, and I think that really applies to this whole mentality of individual action really does make a difference. It's very easy to think that your actions don't contribute to the problem or aid in the problem, but it really does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And this is switching gears just a little bit here, but I really want to address some of the stereotypes about zero waste, as well as some of the obstacles. So, something that I think I maybe had an awareness of, but it wasn't until I spoke to you that I really brought it into focus, but the socio-economic barriers to zero waste and what that looks like on an individual level. I think something that I've noticed and you help bring my attention to every time we hear someone, or a lot of times, I should say, promoting zero waste, it is like the stereotype is a wealthy white woman that has an abundance of time, has money, and then you hear these TED Talks and you hear these women who are promoting zero waste and they're like, oh, it's easy and you can do it cheaply. And there is
Right.
truth to that.
Right.
But it's also, there is a degree of privilege to that in the time that it takes to maybe make your own cleaning products or beauty products, or maybe you can't afford the startup cost of zero waste, or even you can't afford some of the products down the line. So, like an example I would like to give, it's easy to reduce your waste by buying fresh produce. Well, if you live in a food apartheid and you don't have access to fresh produce, of course, everything you consume is going to come in plastic packaging or is that can't necessarily be recycled. So, what's your take on that? And what do you recommend for people who are interested? What happens to the individuals who can't afford to practice zero waste, whether it be to time or money? Is that the community's responsibility to step in? Throwing a lot of questions at you, but just what's your take on that?
Yeah. No problem. And I think this is one of the most fascinating aspects of zero waste and sustainability in general is that is on the more expensive side. So even buying compostable products is going to be more expensive because it's just more expensive to make them. So the price point is always going to be higher. And you're completely right that most people that don't have the financial means to afford compostable plates or compostable cups are going to buy the plastic plates and the plastic cups because they're just that much cheaper. And I think what you're saying about food apartheid and just, food deserts, like people that don't have access to fresh organic food are going to buy what's available, which is often super processed, packaged in plastic items. That's not someone not caring about the planet. It's that that's what is within their means of what they can afford and what is available to them. So I mean, I think it's unfortunate that there is such a high financial barrier. What should be happening is that there I think places, especially companies, should be putting in more effort to provide affordable produce, affordable products that people can buy, like reusable bags or organic cleaning products, but at an affordable price. But I think oftentimes it's a lot of these businesses are running on very thin profit margins. And as a business, nobody wants to take a cut. And I think that's just a reality. And honestly, I'm not sure what the solution to that is. I think a lot of it does come down to policy and just like a community having to come together to either provide for others or to come up with ways to give access to sustainability that not everyone that not everyone can reach out to or have access to. But yeah, I do think that some individual actions that people could could think about would be composting, because that is something you can do in your own home. Like, even if you just have a small bin of some food waste, that will eventually break down, and that's something that you could easily do. Just have a small bucket and throw some food scraps in there. I think some other things that people can do is just try to reuse items until their life is done. I feel like so many things are just um like just bought new, or you people don't think about how they could potentially rework something else. For example, like, instead of buying new paper towels, maybe you could use an old t-shirt as a rag, or yeah, or you can try and come up with another use for a bag. Like, if you have a bag that you were going to throw away, maybe you could reuse that. And I think a lot of it is just trying to use items until the end of life, rather than a one-time use and then throwing it away, which is what a lot of products are created for. So yeah, it is complicated. I think it is one of the more difficult aspects of the zero waste movement.
Well, I threw a lot of questions there at you. I know some $1,000,000 questions that if you had the answers, I'm sure you would be out solving it for yourself and everyone else in the world. So thank you for what you have to contribute on that. And I just wanted to ask, do you have any fun examples in your own life that you just enjoy or particularly proud of how you practice zero waste or just repurpose items?
Yeah, so I like to go dumpster diving.
Oh, how fun! That's
Yeah.
adventurous of you. That's really bold.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it is like truly such a great picture of how wasteful our society is, because when I'm in the dumpster, like literal dumpsters in town, I can, like, you just see what is being thrown away, and so much of it is perfectly good. And it I think sometimes it's so much, like, sometimes I'm so overwhelmed by what I find in the dumpster. Like, I'm like, I wish I wish I had 5 other people with me so they could also take all of this stuff out of the dumpster too. And I mean, not to say like everyone should be dumpster diving. I know it's not for everyone.
I don't know. I think I might be giving it a try. That sounds pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's something that I feel really good about, and it's also like, truly, I am physically taking things out of the landfill and bringing it back, and either like using it, like, a lot of food is thrown away, or like, if I find, like, there's one time where I found some old picture frames that were dumped out, and I was like, wow, like, these picture frames are perfectly good. I could reuse them, or it's like donate them to a thrift store, because they shouldn't have been thrown away.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll share an example. I'm all about rescuing furniture and just I have a hard time throwing anything away, which is both a virtue and also a curse. It becomes problematic. So like I do have to be careful. When I moved houses, my boyfriend had to like sit with me and like go item by item and help me like
I'd
throw
be like,
away.
we can't keep
You
everything.
don't need that. You don't need 86 mason jars. It's kind of crusty, so probably Goodwill doesn't want it
Yeah.
either. But anyways, rescue furniture. So the desk that I'm sitting at right now actually came from a dumpster and it was a little rough, but I've like repainted it and it's like my favorite desk in the world. It's got flowers all over it.
Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
that.
I got a dresser just off the side of the road today and it's like so nice. It's crazy to me, like the stuff that people are just willing to throw away. And like I want to use that within reason because there are things that are at the end of their life, but there's so many ways to reuse it. And something that I'm practicing, I'm really excited to be doing this coming week. My roommates and I are hosting a clothing swap. So we're in,
That's
yeah. So
fun.
it is more than just clothing, but it's open to the community, but we're inviting a lot of friends and clothing is the main item. And the idea is that everybody's going to bring anything that they're done using. Like maybe it doesn't fit anymore. They just don't like it. have
Mhm.
all these clothes, and then it's like you get to shop from your friends' clothes.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. I love
yeah,
that.
so your clothes find a new home, and then you get a new wardrobe, and whatever doesn't get, adopted, I'll say, or taken up, we're gonna donate to a thrift store. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see how that works out. Maybe follow up on an episode about that.
Oh my
But yeah,
gosh, yeah. I would love to see how that goes and
yeah, I
see
wish you
what you
were
found
local.
too.
Yeah, I wish you were here in Kentucky with me so you could be attending, but it is going to be really fun. So I think one of the things that we have to open people's eyes to is that this is fun. Like, you can find ways that it's not a burden, it's not a chore. You can make this something that's sustainable, both in the sense of for the planet and yourself, and enjoy it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen some apps for phones that try and gamify a zero waste. So, you earn points for recycling something or for composting something or like shopping at a thrift store. And then once you get a certain amount of points, you can redeem them for prizes.
Oh,
Um
wow.
yeah, and I thought that was such a cool idea. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with your idea that zero waste and sustainability can be fun. It doesn't have to be a chore. It doesn't have to be something that you feel like is out of reach. This made me think of my grandma, my maternal grandma. She repaired everything. Like, I mean, I would have pants or shirts and they're so holy, but then she'd be like, no, they're still good. It's like you can just add a cute patch or something, or just actually something else that I want to get better at, want to learn more about is sachiko, which is the Japanese visible mending. So I've been saving all of these jeans that have holes in them. And I'm like, I'm going to do sachiko on them. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's stuff like that where it's like, you can create something really beautiful or really creative and also repurpose an item and not have to throw it away just because it seems broken or it seems too worn or something. Or
I appreciate everything you shared with us here today. Is there anything that you want to leave with our listeners? Maybe if they're just interested in exploring this lifestyle, where can they start?
yeah, a lot of stuff that I've learned about zero waste, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, they were the ones that originated the term zero waste. So if you Google them, their website has so much good information. It's really lovely and really wonderful. And I would say YouTube too. Like, if you're interested in zero waste, there's a ton of YouTube videos that you can check out just about how to incorporate some zero waste into your life.
Yeah, these platforms can be a really excellent tool, especially for learning something like that. So, great
Yeah.
place to start. And I want to acknowledge, maybe in the summary, that it is a privilege. Zero waste is a privilege in that you are limited by the resources available to you. But if it is something that you can practice and feel led to practice, absolutely go for it and do what you can, because the little things do
hmm
add up, as you have exemplified here today. Thank you for the recommendations, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ashton. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.